Well, hello everybody and welcome back to my kitchen. Patrick Evans here with you. And tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to do meatballs. I decided that once a week I'm going to go over a tried and true family recipe, or maybe try some new recipes with you since we're here. Hello, John Rowlands. You know, we're kind of quarantined in, so I've been doing a lot of cooking. My wife's been doing a lot, but the kids escaped. The wife and kids, as soon as I said, hey, we're going to go live on Facebook, they scrambled. That's okay. Tonight we want to talk about my grandmother's family recipe Italian meatballs. Now this came over from the old country. My grandmother came from a little village called Faeto. It is over on the Foggia side of Italy, on the Adriatic side. And I've been to this village. It's amazing. A little mountaintop village. At one time it was a walled village, but there was World War II, which took down most of the wall. And then an earthquake in 1983 took care of the rest of it. But it's a little bit of a different recipe. You're going to recognize a lot of elements of this. If you make meatballs at home, then you're going to know a lot of this. But there's a little trick that my grandmother used that's a little bit different than anybody else's recipe that I've ever seen. So I wanted to share it with you tonight. I've got a batch in the oven. So that's one of the things that I like to do. Once we make them, we bake them off. So it's a little easier than pan frying. You can always pan fry them in olive oil, but it takes a long time and it's a lot of work. So let me tell you a little bit about the recipe. And I've got it right here. I've already made it. What we've got here, beef, pork, veal. So I use the triumvirate of Italian meats. Almost every dish that I grew up with that involved meats in Italy, we used beef, pork, and one of those pesky Hilton calls. I'm tired of that. Okay, you of course can use any mix of meat you want. You can make it an all beef meatball. I don't particularly care for all beef meatballs. Then it's just a round hamburger. We use beef, pork, and veal. And what we do is we take 1 pound of beef and then a half a pound of pork and a half a pound of veal. Now, one of the things that we do in our family is we use our Fulvio's Italian sausage in place of the ground pork. So you get a little extra spice. We use the mild, but it's got a little fennel, so it's going to have a little bit of a different flavor. But you can do that. Not too much of a shameless plug, but you can get Fulvio's at the Real Italian Deli in Palm Desert and also in Palm Springs. So beef, pork, veal, again, 1 pound of beef, half a pound of pork, half a pound of veal. Then about a cup of breadcrumbs. There's Zach watching and Richard. Hi guys. Bethany, Mar, thank you. Now, of course, you want to put some great cheese into these meatballs as well. I use, of course, Parmesan Reggiano, which I think gives it a very nice, mild, nutty, cheesy flavor. A lot of people put Peccorino, and I almost did for this. I found a great container of Peccorino imported from Italy. I was going to put that in there. Chrisanne, you can't order Fulvio's online, but you can go to the Real Italian Deli and get it. Hello there, Zach. Good to see you. I hope you're feeling well. And congratulations, Zach, by the way, on your new gig. It's WTKR in Norfolk, isn't it? Hello, Jan. How are you? By the way, I want to remind you once again, tonight on CBS Local 2, our coronavirus questions answered. If you're interested in that, we got all of the representatives of the local cities on, so this will be posted online later. Hello, Tony. I'm a little embarrassed that you're watching my meatball recipe. But okay, here you go. You got the beef, pork, veal. You've got about a cup of breadcrumb, maybe a little bit more. And then you've got a little more. I use about 10 ounces of cheese because I like my meatballs nice and cheesy. Fresh chopped Italian flat leaf parsley. You want to use about a quarter cup of that. Get it, chop it up, put it in. I take 1 small onion, usually about a half of a normal sized onion. I dice it very, very small. Okay, tiny little dicing. Saute that, set it aside, wrap it in a paper towel to get rid of the excess olive oil so you drain off the moisture. And then about 3 cloves of garlic finely chopped. Okay, that's what we do. That's what we put in there. I also put in a little bit of Italian seasoning and some oregano because I love the flavor of oregano in my meatballs. We love to do that. Now the trick is, a lot of people put a little milk in their breadcrumbs. They'll soak the breadcrumbs in milk. There's no milk in this recipe whatsoever. I use milk in my bolognese, a little cream. We might do that one time. This is my grandmother's secret, and you guys are going to, trust me, when I tell you this, you're going to be like, what, that's crazy. And she was a little crazy, but that's okay. For 2 pounds of meat, you're going to use 6 to 8 eggs. 6 to 8 eggs for 2 pounds of meat. I know that sounds nuts, but it's not. If it's a small to medium egg, you're going to use 8. Those large or extra large eggs, use 6. You're going to beat them. After you put the meat in and incorporate that meat, you want to mix all of those 3 flavors of meat and just kind of combine it, but be very careful as you're mixing it. Just fold it around. You don't want to compress those meats, because if you do that, you're going to get a heavy, tough meatball. And what we're working on here is a meatball that is light, fluffy, flavorful, and delicious, and you're going to love it. Unless you put enough sauce on, our meatballs will float off the plate. That's because of all that egg. So what you do, you mix all of your dry ingredients. Okay, you mix all of the meats. You add the breadcrumb, you add the cheese, and then you add all of the spices. I put, like I said, a little Italian seasoning, a little oregano. We throw in that flat leaf parsley, the sauteed onion, the chopped garlic. All of that goes in there. Salt, pepper, of course. You need some fresh ground black pepper in there. Put all of that in there. Give it a nice mix. After you get everything nicely incorporated, you take those 6 to 8 eggs, beat them up real nice, and then pour them in to your meat mixture. And then again, very gently fold those eggs into that so that you allow the breadcrumb, the cheese, the meat to absorb all of that egg. And what you're going to do is exactly what I'm doing here. Once you put the egg into the meat mixture with all of your other dry ingredients, set it, walk away from it, cover it up with a nice towel, walk away for about 10 to 15 minutes. That way, you can allow that egg mixture to absorb in, because when you first put it in there, it's going to seem like a lot of liquid. It really isn't, because again, you're dealing with a cup or more of breadcrumb, you've got all that nice cheese, you've got 2 pounds of meat. Let it rest for a little bit. When you come back about 10, 15 minutes later, when you can form a nice firm meatball, but don't squish it up. Do it just with the tips of your fingers. My grandmother always said, just lightly with the tips of your fingers. Hello, Joe DeShiel from Roanoke, Virginia. One of my great buddies. We've been friends for a long time, Joe. Anyway, my grandmother always then let it rest, then you form your meatballs, and then we pan fried them in olive oil. That takes a long time, and you got to roll them around, but you want a nice crust on them. What I do a lot of the time is put them in the oven, and I got a batch in the oven right now. They're coming along. What I do, coat your baking pan, hey Joe, coat your baking pan with some olive oil, and then once you've rolled out your meatballs, and I put 12 meatballs in the pan, then spray them with a little olive oil. I've got one of these, it's called a quick mist. You put your good olive oil right in it, and then you pump it up, and then you can just spritz it. You can spritz it, and it sprays like an aerosol, okay? So you can do that, and that way your meatballs are nice and evenly coated with the olive oil, and use good olive oil, just like you'd cook with. And then you throw them in the oven. I put it in at 375, put them in there for about 18 minutes, maybe a little longer. Now, I've got a great pan of our family sauce cooking over here. It's not really a marinara because there's already a little meat in here, and the meatballs are going to go in here. What I did is I put some chunks of pepperoni in there. We'll talk about sauce on another day. But what I'm going to do, it's okay if you bake the meatballs off and they're not completely done if you put them in the sauce. But if you're going to freeze them, and these freeze beautifully, by the way, make sure they're cooked all the way through. And for that, what you want to do, grab a meat thermometer. I got one around here somewhere. Just pop it in and make sure they're done all the way through. Hello, Rita Vale. Nobody makes meatballs like Rita Vale. Her recipe and my family recipe, pretty similar. Glad you're watching. Hello, Tom. So what you want to do is make sure if you're going to freeze them off, and these, as I said, they freeze beautifully, make sure they're fully done when you pull them out of the oven. Steve, Gary, yeah, me too. I love the extra cheese in these. But the way I really love to do these meatballs, and we're going to do it together, I deep fry them. That's right, you heard me. I deep fry them. I decided to do this one time. I was making arancini, you know, the risotto, the rice balls with the cheese in the middle. And you make the risotto, and then you roll them in egg and breadcrumb, and then you fry them. And I thought, well, as long as I got the deep fryer going, let's deep fry some meatballs. You're going to get this fantastic crisp crust on the meatball that's going to hold up when you put it into your tomato sauce. It is fantastic, and it makes a great meatball. You want to be careful not to fry them too long. So I've got 4 ready to go. I'm going to make one more. And again, what you want to do, you got to be real soft with the touch, okay? Just with the tips of your fingers. Don't smush them down, because you don't need a perfectly round meatball. It's going to be fine. Everybody's going to eat. It's going to be delicious. Everybody eats with the eyes first, so make it nice and round. All right, we're going to put that in the basket. I got 5 in there ready to go. I'm going to wash my hands. Yeah, there's good hot water here. There we go. Soap. All right, you want to make sure you don't want to, especially when you're working with meat, you got to be very careful in the kitchen not to cross-contaminate things. But now, we've got our deep fryer up to temperature. I've got 5 gorgeous meatballs in there, okay? They're ready to go. Can you see that? Look how good those are. No, you don't fry them in olive oil. That's a great question. You want to fry them in canola oil or vegetable oil. Olive oil has a very low smoke point. If you do it in olive oil, you can't put olive oil in a deep fryer. So you use your good old-fashioned vegetable oil, something that's actually pretty low in cholesterol. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you deep fry them, they're actually a little better for you than if you pan fried them in the olive oil, which is still, great for you. Olive oil is a good, healthy oil, but this is canola oil, which I'm using, and we're going to drop these. Meanwhile, the other batch is in the oven baking off, and they're getting pretty close. But here we go. We're going to deep fry these babies. Oh. Now that's nice. I'm gonna bring you a little closer here. I want you to get a good look at this. I don't know how much cable I have here, but there they are, frying away. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody else has deep fried their meatballs before, but once I tried it, I loved it. And again, it gives you this wonderful sear on the outside of the meatball. Then when you throw it into your sauce, which is exactly what I'm going to do, and then we're going to simmer it for a nice long while. Remember that those meatballs are going to simmer in that sauce. That sauce has been going since about 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's going to continue to go. But once I put the meatballs in there, it's going to get a whole different complexion and flavor. But those meatballs are going to stay nice and firm because they're going to be coming out of the deep fryer. They are going to be absolutely beautiful. But again, if you're going to freeze them, you want to make sure they're done all the way through. So keep your meat thermometer. Someone asked, where's my glass of Jack? I'm actually drinking a little Cabernet tonight. So to go along, because I had to put it in the sauce, and I hate to waste wine. I wasn't going to put the whole bottle in the sauce. So salute Chindan. I hope that you're enjoying these recipes. This is exactly the way my grandmother made them, other than the deep fryer. Although if she'd known about this, I think she would have done it, and my dad would too. Let's go check on the ones that are in the oven right now. And again, baking them off is a great way to do it because, again, first of all, it's a giant time saver. It's really hard to roll them around in the olive oil. It takes a little while. So baking them is a great way to go. They're coming along. They got a few more minutes, but not too many. And so these are going to come out about the same time that those, spin these around a little bit. Oh, you can see a little bit of the cheese coming out of them. This is a great recipe. And again, if you are fond of making beef meatballs, you can do that with this recipe. Again, the egg is the secret ingredient. Yeah, I'm wearing slippers. So, did you notice? I'm in my own kitchen. Come on, we're in quarantine. I don't think I've worn shoes in days. That's not true. I went out and got all of my ingredients the other evening. So again, you want to get good, and I used, by the way, for this, I used 91% to 9% lean ground beef, very lean ground beef. You're going to put pork in there. We put our Italian sausage in there, so you're going to get a little bit of fat off the Italian sausage. We put in some nice veal, 1 pound of beef, half a pound of pork, half a pound of Fulvio's Italian sausage. Take it out of the casing, mix it in, and then a half a pound of veal. If you don't want to use veal, and I understand people are sensitive about that, you can substitute the veal with chicken or turkey if you want to do that. You can actually do it entirely with this recipe, switching out the meats. But we're pretty traditional. We're carnivores. I always do the beef, pork, veal. Hello, Tony. Good to see you. Hi, Faith. Thanks for watching. So once I get them out of the deep fryer, I'm going to let them drain for a couple minutes. Then I'm going to throw them right in the sauce. But we'll break one open and take a peek at it. And we're also going to pull those that are in the oven. So this doesn't really take that long to make. The sauce is really a longer process. But once you get going with the beef, the pork, the veal, you mix all your ingredients, let it rest for about 15 minutes. Because again, you're going to use 6 to 8 eggs, a half a dozen or 2 pounds those are spam callers, a half a dozen eggs for 2 pounds of meat. So, and I will, Zoe, I'm gonna post the recipe as soon as I get done with getting everything out of here and once the live video is over. But listen, I hope everybody's having a good Thursday, and we're all kind of cooped up. I knew that some people tried the chicken cacciatore recipe of last week and really liked it, and they were posting pictures. So let me know if you decide to try the meatball recipe and post some pictures. That's always a lot of fun. These are our family recipes. They've been around for a long time. My grandparents both, on my father's side, immigrated from Italy. Came right through Ellis Island. My grandfather was born in 1889 in a little village called Cervinato, and he came through Ellis Island in 1901. My grandmother was a little bit farther behind him. She was younger. But she came, as I said, from a little town called Faeto, and it is a little mountaintop town. So their recipes sometimes just a little bit different, as was their dialect. My grandmother's dialect in Italian was heavily influenced by French. So it's very interesting when you go into the town, you see the Italian on the signs, but also the dialect, and you see, because it's close to Naples, it's on the other side, they also use the Napolitan and then the actual dialect of the town, Faeto. So that's what we're doing. We're making these. My grandmother's, oh, look at these. Look how gorgeous. I want to be careful. I don't want to spread hot oil, but I want you to look at this. Look at these meatballs that came out of the deep fryer. They're not quite done. I'm going to leave them in a little bit longer, but look at that beautiful golden crust on those. Huh? That's the way a meatball's supposed to look. Once we put that in the sauce, it is going to be beautiful. We'll roll those around. That's coming along beautifully. All right, let's pull the ones out of the oven. I'm going to let those go another couple of minutes. They're close. Let's check them with the meat thermometer because we want to make sure, right? The last thing you want to do is not cook everything properly to temperature. Check it out. Oh no, those babies are done, done, done. Let's get them out of there. I recommend pot holders for this, but I didn't have a lot, so I'm just using these. Okay, all right. I'm gonna bring these over so you can see them. There's a little olive oil in the bottom of the pan. But you got a beautiful meatball ready to go. It's got a little sear on it from the oven, and it's ready to go right in your sauce. I'm going to take about 6 of these and put them in my sauce. The rest of these, because they're cooked all the way through, we're going to freeze those later on once they cool. So we're going to put these over here. Let's see. While they're still sizzling. Now, look at that meatball, huh? That looks really good. That looks delicious. And you can see a little cheese coming out of there. All right. Meatball 1 in the sauce. Oh, don't break it up. Meatball 2 in the sauce. Meatball 3 in the sauce. I want those to cool off a little bit more. And now I got to pull the ones that are in the deep fryer because I know these babies are done. Now, this is something, this is such a treat. These meatballs, you guys, if you do this at home, if you got a deep fryer, you can air fry them too, by the way. You can air fry these. Look at these gorgeous meatballs, huh? Look at that. I wish you could smell these things. They smell fantastic. A deep fried meatball is going to have a nice crisp crust no matter how long it simmers in the sauce. Let me pull one of those babies out of there. All right. Guys, that is a perfect meatball right there. What you're looking at, this is the way meatballs were meant to be. That is going to be a little bit of heaven when we cut that open. But I'm going to put it in the sauce first. I'm going to let them finish in the sauce. Oh, don't do that to me. Don't stick it in my bucket. I got to dig them out in a little bit. But I'm going to put those in the sauce. Let's pull one out and actually let's take the one that I just put in the sauce. All right, let's try it. Pretty sure that's done all the way through. If not, we'll just throw it back in the sauce. No big deal. All right, this is Grandma's Italian meatballs. Here we go. Look at that. And we'll just, oh, look at that crust. And look how perfectly done it is. Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely fantastic. It's going to be really hot, but I'm going to enjoy it. Oh, that is fantastic. All right, those are going to simmer a little while longer in the sauce, but that is how you deep fry a meatball. And again, 2 pounds of meat, 6 to 8 eggs. Trust me on this. Try it. When you mix it in, let the eggs sit 10, 15 minutes, so then you can get a nice round meatball out of it. If it starts to flatten out a little bit, let it sit a little longer. You can even add a little more breadcrumb if you need to do that. This is what we do in the kitchen when we're on quarantine. Sometimes we do it even when we're not. But thanks for joining me. I'm going to post the recipe in just a few minutes. Let me know if you try it out. If you're a meat lover, you'll love these meatballs. They're light, they're fluffy, they're not too heavy. I think you're really going to enjoy them. So my grandmother, Irma Linda, bless you for giving us this recipe. And bless my parents for handing it down to us. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great evening. And again, we'll leave the video up and we'll post the recipe for you as well. And one day we'll talk about sauce. Everybody's got a different recipe for sauce. I think you'll like ours. Have a great Thursday evening, and I'll see you tomorrow on News Channel 3, first thing in the morning. And don't forget, CV1043 tomorrow afternoon starting at 2.